Hi everybody. So today I made some fun cards and I wanted to show you guys some of them and we're going to make one together. So these we're using the Stampin' Up set Waterfront. So this is 90% of what I used on the card. And then I used also the High Tide, which is totally optional. I just used it for the birds and the waves down here. But both of these are current Stampin' Up sets, and I will link them down below for you. And they are photopolymer. When you order the stamps, they do come in the stamping case. I just take mine out and put them in the sleeves to save storage space. But when you order them, they will come in the stamping case if you like the storage case. So here are the cards real quick. So this one you can see I made a little mistake. So I put a cloud up there and put some rain coming down. So it's kind of like it's starting to rain, right? Our little beach hut there. And then this one. And I think these are all very masculine and neutral, so they can be used for a number of things. This one's very woodsy. I use the bigger birds on this one. So the reason I had to use the birds, can you see the little spots there? Is because I made the mistake of using a bigger block with my stamps. And anytime you do stamping, you should try to find a block that's going to match your stamp size, because if you put a small stamp on a bigger block, then what happens is that ink transfers to the outside of your block and you have a chance of touching it. And that's what I did here on the cards, is I ended up blotching them, so I put the birds over to kind of cover that up. We don't look at them as mistakes, we look at them as opportunities to embellish. And then this one's my favorite, which we are going to work on today. All right. And never mind the wrist there. I have a little bit of carpal tunnel. We just got back from vacation. Actually, our vacation got rained out, and I pray to everybody that's having to deal with this rain that they come out okay. But we're lucky we came home early from vacation, and we're doing okay. All right, so I'm going to put this one out so we have it to reference. Put these aside. I also wanted to talk to you guys about the shammy here. I was testing it out before I wanted to give you guys a review of it. And as you can see, mine has been used a lot today. Actually, here's my stamping mat sheet from today. So yeah, I did a lot of stamping today. That's probably why I have carpal tunnel. No, I'm just kidding. So what this is it's like a sponge mat. It's purple chamois, and it's not a cloth. And it doesn't come in one of these stamp cases. I put it in one. And what that does is when you have the stamp case closed all the way, it keeps it moist enough that it doesn't dry out right away. It will eventually dry out. It's not a big deal. It's perfectly normal. Mine dries out around the edges after a few days. And all I do is just spray some stamp cleaner on there. And then it will moisten that, and then it gets soft again, so you can continue cleaning your stamps. I got it pretty inky today, so I'm just going to flip it over, and then later on today I will take it up and clean it in the sink. And I'm just going to spray a little more stamp cleaner on there to make sure we're ready to go. And I have this off camera, so then as I'm stamping, all I do is just take it and rub my stamps on there, and it really does a pretty good job at cleaning the stamps out, guys. So you don't have to worry about getting icky stamps before you put them away. Okay, so I'm going to start with some Whisper White cardstock. I have that cut down. This is just the regular 8.5 by 11 regular Whisper White cardstock. Have that cut down to 5 by 3 3/4. And I'm using a variety of different color inks. You use whatever you have available. I will try to remember to put the ink colors I'm using in front of you if you like them. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to start with a little bit of masking tape, or this is the Scotch, what do you call it? Scotch? It's not Scotch tape. Scotch brand, 3M brand Post-it tape. That's what I'm thinking. And it is helpful to have a stamping mat underneath. I have the stamping mat from Stampin' Up, and I love this because I can get it all inky, and then when I'm done, I just peel it up and throw it away. But it also, the grid lines help to keep everything straight so that we know we're lining this up. All right, pretty good. And then I have a little piece of a circle that I cut out with a circle die. Okay, so we're going to mask that off, and we're going to start with some lighter blues here. And you can use a sponge or so I have some sponges, I have ink daubers, so whatever you have on handy. I have these guys, I have my sponges down here, which I have pinched off with a bullnose clip. Whatever you have. I'm going to be using actually the mini distress tools just because it's easier for me to hold right now. And I'm going to start off with the pool party because that's a little bit lighter. The pool party has a little bit of a light teal to it. If you're not sure how a color is going to look, you dab it off and see what it looks like before you put it down on your paper. And I'm going to start off the edge of the paper and just kind of pull that in a circular motion. And again, because we're using the Whisper White, it's very easy to blend these out. We're just going to do a little bit with the pool party there. And then we're going to move on to the new Stampin' Up color, which is called Balmy Blue. And Balmy Blue is basically a little bit darker shade of this color. It still has a little bit of that teal undertone. You see that there? It's not like a regular blue. It has a little bit of a teal undertone, but it's darker shade. And we're just going to pull that in and kind of doing an ombre here, going up the ladder. And again, use any inks that you have. I was playing around with the new stamps and the new ink colors. And then as we go up, I think I went to Blueberry Bushel, which is going to give you more of a regular blue. And then last but not least, I am going to take a little bit of the Night of Navy and just kind of finish off the edges. So we want that dark look. We're just going to go all the way around the edges, concentrating more on the top here and around the edges down here just to kind of frame it off. And if you have too much ink, don't worry about it. You can always go back in and try to blend some of that back out. I did get a little heavy-handed over here. All right. You get the idea. Now, all we're going to do now is flip it over. And we're just going to move that Post-it tape to cover here. And you kind of want to remember where your moon is because we're going to make that area a little bit lighter. And again, we're going to go in with the pool party. Actually, you know what? I think I used Coastal Cabana on this one because it was the lightest. Just kind of wiping off that extra ink off of my dauber here. Yeah, Coastal Cabana is what I use because it's a little bit lighter blue. And I just kind of went in this area here and just gave it a really light hand. And then I went in with some of the darker colors. I think I switched it up a little and I went to the Pacific blue. So I pretty much have used every blue color at this point. But I didn't want the sky and the water to be exactly the same color blues. Yeah, this is Pacific Point. I used this one on the bottom because it has a little bit more blue undertone. And on this one, I'm going to kind of blend it around, kind of leaving that light blue area there. And then I go back in with the darker blue, and I think for this one I'm going to use the blueberry bushel as my darker color. I'm not going to go back to Night of Navy. And again, just swiping that in on the edges. And this will, as it dries, even out a little more too. Okay, so that's the hardest part of the whole card right there, guys, is just getting the ink blending down. And you're just doing a blue sky and blue water. That's all you're doing. And you're just changing up the colors a little bit so that they're a little different. They're not a whole bunch different. And we're going to pull our little mask off here. Ta-da! So there we have our moon. All right, so now we're going to stamp out our little mountains back here. So in the waterfront stamp set, we are going to use this triangular shaped one. And I think I used soft suede for that. And actually, I'm going to go in with early espresso because I want it to be a little darker. So we're going to stamp the island on this side of the moon. And then we're going to re-ink and stamp the edge on this side of the moon. And then we're going to take our little and just scrub it on the stamp chamois there. And that's all you got to do. Now we're going to do the bottom part, but I will do that in a second. The next stamp I'm going to take is this long piece here. And I'm still going to use the early espresso. And I'm just going to kind of stamp that off the edge about there. Okay, so we want to get our little palm tree pieces. And I'm also going to do those in early espresso. So we are going to do the trunk of the trees first, just right off the edge of the island here. And then we're going to take the tops, and because we're doing a silhouette, you can stay with that early espresso dark brown. Now you can see there's a little extra ink on the top of my block. I'm just going to wipe that up because I don't want that to transfer onto my image. Otherwise, I'll have to put more birds on the scene to cover it up. And because these are photopolymer, we can pretty much see through to where they need to go. There we go. Pretty easy. Now, you could stop right there, but we want to add a little more detail. And in order to do the detail, I wanted to add some water. So I'm going to use a couple of stamps for the water. I'm going to use this one. It's kind of like a zigzag. We're done with the dark brown for now. We can put that one away. And then on the zigzags, I use the Balmy blue. And all I did was just put it down in some random places. So one spot there, one spot here, just to kind of give that water some depth. Now we're going to reach over for two little stamps out of the High Tide set. And out of this set, we want to grab the birds. Now these birds all come together. I cut mine in half, so I have the little birds and the big birds. And we want to grab this little bit of water. So I think for this one, I'll just use the little birds. And same thing, I can just use the Early Espresso. It's dark enough. If you wanted to go with a black ink, you could use a black ink. But this is pretty dark. I'm going to put it here. Cover up my boo-boo a little bit. And then we're going to grab the water. Now the water I did in Coastal Cabana. And same kind of thing, just going to put that in a couple of spots. So one right here, one's over here, and one's over here. Okay, so now you guys are, let me show you here side by side. So now the only thing we're missing is the shadow. We have a shadow of the trees and a shadow of the mountains there. So we're going to use a little bit softer color. We're going to use soft suede. And let me grab those original stamps out because we need them to make their shadows. So all you're going to do to make their shadows is you're going to find a pretty large stamp. So I am actually going to use this stamp here, right? But what we're going to do is we are going to adhere it to the block backwards. I'll show you what I mean. So if I were normally going to stamp with this, I would put it down this way, and this would be the side that I would ink, and I would get the stamped image, right? Well, I don't want that side. I don't want the stamped image because it does have some design elements to it. The stamp has like texture to it. So I actually want the smooth side of the stamp, so I'm going to turn it over. And you want any kind of large stamp that you have, and you want to use the back side of the stamp, okay? And you're going to make your own reverse image stamp here. So what we're going to do is we have our tree stems, or trunks, I should say. And I'm using soft suede because it's a little bit lighter brown. And I'm going to stamp the tree trunks onto this stamp here. So what it's going to do is it's going to give us very gently up and down. It's going to give us a reverse image. Now we can take this and stamp this on the water here. And you're going to give it a second just to transfer. And it doesn't need to be perfect because we just want a mirror image of it. So you're making your own mirror stamp. So same thing, we're going to take the tops of the trees and we're going to stamp those on here. And you don't want to slide around, you just want to do real quick up and down. And then we're going to take our mirror stamp and we're going to stamp it down. So now we have made a mirror image, a reflection of the trees. And you know what? There's a little mess up there. That's okay. It's a reflection. It's not going to be perfect. So we're going to clean this off because we're going to do the mountain. The mountain's a little bigger. Okay, so this is our mirror stamp. So remember, this was our original mountain image, so we're going to stamp that down. And we're going to just stamp it right on top of this. Very carefully. I don't think my stamp was dry because I see a lot of water pooling up here. We should be okay. And you're just going to kind of line it up and stamp it down. Yeah, my stamp wasn't dry, so I can see that ink kind of pulling up there a little bit. That's all right. All right, we had a pretty good transfer there. Pretty good. I'm not going to fuss over it. Okay, so that's pretty much all I did. The only other thing I did was I have a Stella brush here. So I just took some of this Stella and then just randomly kind of put it over the water. And I know it's hard for you guys to see on the camera, but it gives it some shimmer. And then I mounted them to some Night and Navy cardstock and then put them right on a card base. So you can see we have this nice kind of reflection mountain card that you could really use anytime. Now, I just noticed down here there's a little spot I missed. No big deal. We're going to take our blender pen. And we're going to take a little bit of this soft suede, dip that in, and take our blender pen and just color that in. So anywhere you feel like, oh, I want it filled in a little more. In fact, I'm going to fill my mountain in over here because that will bother me. Just dab it in, and now you have your own color marker that matches. And then you just color it out, and that color will eventually come all the way out of the marker. Which is why I love my grid mat, because it takes so much abuse, but boy, I just have to tear that top sheet off and throw it out, and nobody will be any other wiser. All right, so there you go, guys. That is my little card set using the Waterfront and High Tide stamp sets from Stampin' Up. Again, these are high-quality photopolymer stamps. If you do not already have a Stampin' Up demonstrator, I will link my Stampin' Up page down below, and you guys can order any of these items that I used from there, including the grid mat, the Stella pen, the ink colors, the stamping blocks, and the stamp shammy. So again, any questions, give me a shout down below. Thanks for watching, and as always, keep on stamping, guys. Bye.